Well, hey guys, we're going live now without Chris Stone. He's out there gallivanting. That's what people are doing the weekend between Christmas and New Year's, taking off, having a field day. I have an awesome guest today who's not here yet. And so you get me. And actually, this is a sales lesson for all you salespeople out there that you just got to get comfortable winging it. Now, it's not a problem for me right now because there literally are 0 viewers at this very moment, which is awesome. But man, I'm telling you, you'll watch this later and you're going to learn something. The whole idea with doing live content and live videos and interviews with people is that even if nobody's watching it live, you are creating content for yourself. Content for yourself that you can use for every. Oh, look who's here. My man, Joe Miller. We always need more DJs. That's right. Exactly right. Hey, Joe Miller, I tell you what, hold on. I'm going to send an email to you right now. Live in concert, new email to Joe Miller. Joe, I don't have your email in here. It's some kind of crazy thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it on LinkedIn. And I'm going to send you a link to get you on the. Oh, look who's here. Mendel's causing trouble. I'm going to add this guy. Hey, big dog, look at you. Okay, hold on. I'm going to figure this whole thing out. This is what happens when Chris Stone's not around.
Why? What's going on?
Hey, we do that. Hey, what the? Hey, dude, we're live. Joe Miller's here and everything.
What's good, people?
Okay. Hey, listen, no problem. We're going to do a whole intro and everything. But, Joe, I do want to get you an email. Maybe you can come and join us.
I'm fixing this window. Give me a sec.
Fix a window. He said, I talked to I talked to Mendel. I feel as if I'm talking to my my grandfather. So I'll go fix the window if I have to, Azoy.
Just give me a second. I'm gonna fix the window.
Azoy with the window. Yeah, that's what they do. They don't say window, they say window. But listen, this is exactly what people need to do. You think you're getting no content here, but this is the future of your marketing efforts.
Agreed.
So how come I don't have your email, Joe Miller? Joe Miller.
All right, we gotta get a better window shade. Listen, you guys have no idea what's going on over here. Okay, I'm just building up. Look at this. I kicked the construction guy out. Look at this wall. We're building a wall over here. There's a lot going on.
You need a wall. I
painted this blue last night just for this.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? So you got the whole thing going. Yeah, so this is good. All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to pretend like we're not live yet, and we're going to start it all over again, all right? So I'm going to move you out, and then you're going to come back. I'm going to introduce you, and you're going to this is a Sales Energizer show, and so you'll have your arms in the air like that. Got it? Yeah, that's how you go. See, okay. This is what you're getting here is what the viewers are getting is the behind the scenes thing going here. And so I'm going to figure.
Before we do that, I want to make sure my mic is the correct microphone, first of all. And I want to make sure that
it sounds good there.
Camera, audio. Yep, we're good. Okay, beautiful. So how do I know when to come in? Sorry.
I'll bring you in. You just hang out here. Don't you worry about a thing. That's how it's going to work. I think. Actually, I wonder if this will just work.
You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Boom! Boom! That's what you get, guys. You see, now Mendel didn't expect me to have that so perfectly worked out there. Neither did you, Joe Miller. So, in any event, all right, listen, guys, we're getting started a little bit late because Chris Stone isn't here, and the DJ has to do this all by himself, which is a whole lot of fun. But I have a very, very special guest here today, someone who's actually a kindred spirit. We're trying to solve all the world's problems right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and Twitter, and wherever else it is. He actually is one of those people in the healthcare world that is changing things for the better for everybody. So without any further pontification by me, please help me welcome my new friend with his arms in the air in the Sales Energizer show, Mr. Mendel El. Oh, I forgot to put you on you. After all that. Oh, I got no sound from you now. Your sounds is all for lunches.
We'll do it again.
Okay. All right.
Nice
Way to go, Mendel. Thanks so much for coming on. I know you were busy. Hold on. Let me do this. I think I got something really cool for you. Check this out. I didn't learn how to do it. I'm going to do this and do this, and move that there. And then I'm going to do this, and then check this out. My man Chris Stone taught me this. Hold on here. Boom. What do you think of that? Is that cool gorgeous. Or what?
It's gorgeous.
Well, yeah. So listen, I met you through a friend, Joe Miller, who said he was trying. This is a whole thing because this is a sales show. He was trying to reach out to you to do some business with you, and two things happens. One, you answered the phone.
Yes.
And two, you turned them down. But what he said in the middle of that is you managed on somebody calling you to basically give enough of a sales pitch that got him excited to tell me about it. And so that's the perfect thing. Everybody's so afraid to answer the phone. It's a perfect opportunity to give your pitch without making a cold call. And so I appreciate that. And because of that, I said, this is the type of guy I need to get on the show. So Mendel, my man, with all that said, tell me, what the heck do you do?
Well, that's awesome. First of all, just to go back to that for a second. So I got a hats off to Joe. Joe is very unique. First of all, he sent me a handwritten letter in the mail. Okay. So in general, I don't say no. And why should you say no? You're not that cool. Okay. In general, people out there, people listening, you're not that interesting that you could say no to everybody. Okay. Yes, you're going to hone your ability to the people that want to sell you something that you've been pitched a million times. You'll hone that ability, but don't say no. First of all, if there's someone that's reaching out that looks half interesting or a conversation looks half interesting, just have the conversation. You could spend 15 minutes. 15 minutes you could find in your calendar, no matter how busy you are. In fact, the busier you are, probably the better chance you can find the 15 minutes. But in general, I don't say no. I say yes. But Joe sent me a handwritten letter. Okay. Now that is commitment. Really? That is commitment. And then it actually got a little better because we got on, and I think he wasn't able to make it for some reason. And I was like, God, this Joe guy, he's out of hand, right? He missed the meeting, right? And then he sends me an apology letter, handwritten, right? And we reschedule, and we reschedule. We get on, and it's funny you mentioned that because I didn't realize that I was giving him a pitch. I think that when you live something, and it's meaningful to you, and it's something that you do, and it's not just a job, I think it may just come out. So I can't say that the purpose was me trying to pitch Joe on anything. But yeah, you're right. Look at this. Now we're sitting here on the D.
Yeah, it was total natural. It was very natural. And you say you live it. And now you're in healthcare, and we had a guest on about a year ago, a really cool guy, Grady, and he had a healthcare consulting company. I had never heard about this before. Like, there's an actual industry. Apparently, it's huge. But what he was doing was helping a lot of doctors get into private practice, and it was helpful for everyone. It was helpful for the patients. There's all different models. Helpful for the patients, helpful for the doctor to live a more, satisfying life, and for society as a whole, because you're able to bring prices down when you do it that way. And this was about a year ago, and he was talking about like kind of new products that were coming out, even with Medicare. And is that what you're into?
Interesting. So, in general, that's interesting. I think you see probably the opposite, a lot going on. A lot of consolidation, a lot of big systems coming in and buying up a lot of doctors. I wouldn't say I help doctor. I do very, very, very specific thing. We run 5 very specific programs. These are preventive care programs that are better for the patient. They're better for the payer. They're better for the doctor. They're better all around. And they also pay, which is a secondary, very nice thing. So it's a way to provide better care to your patients and bring in an additional revenue stream. We've set up now that these programs are pretty hard to implement in-house. So we've set up a full service from A to Z. So we provide the clinical staff to do it and the technology. And where we stay on top of all the regulatory compliance and all the new things that are coming out. Just now, CMS said, finalize the new 2023 final ruling. So there's a lot of updates. We stay on top of everything so that the doctors don't have to. We get it done for them A to Z. So that's what we do. The 5 programs are chronic care management, remote patient monitoring, annual wellness visits for Medicare, transitional care management, and behavioral health integration. So
all right. Well, you probably could say that a little bit faster so nobody can understand it. But in other words, so if I'm the doctor, and what's the benefit to me if I'm a doctor utilizing one of those services?
Sure. So let's talk about the primary program, which is going to be chronic care management. You're a doctor, right? Let's decide what kind of doctor are you. What kind of doctor are you?
I am a general practitioner. I deal with a lot of elderly patients with hypertension.
Fabulous. So let's assume for a second that you have 1,000 Medicare.
Fabulous. And nothing better than high blood pressure.
Well, at least you're helping them with it. That's the fabulous part,
Okay.
The blood pressure is going to be there one way or another. You deciding to help your patients, now that's a choice, right? So we are going to take your patients that have Medicare. We're going to call them and offer them to be part of this program. What the program will entail is a number of things. We're going to take their specific diagnosis codes. So you mentioned hypertension. So let's say this specific patient has hypertension, diabetes, or another patient has a different set of chronic conditions. And we are going to build a care plan that's going to revolve around those specific chronic conditions for that specific patient. And the care plan is going to get really, really detailed. Okay. So we're going to try to get into the nitty gritty. We're going to say, all right, what are instead of a doctor just projecting at you and just saying things to you, we're going to say, all right, what are your goals? What would you like to see from your health? Right. And it can be as human as I want to see my grandkids more. I want to have more energy to be around my family. Right. It can be really down to earth, plain English reasons. And then we're going to say, okay,
this is you talking to my patients, or
so
are you talking to me?
Yes, but all the information that we would take as a third-party service all comes from your EHR. So we're not making anything up, okay? And everything is the system is pre-configured by doctors, right? But the actual conversation is going to happen by us, right? And the answers are going to be given by the patient. So at no point are we giving any kind of medical advice or medical care. That's for you to do. You're the doctor. I'm not looking to be the doctor, right? So we're going to say, all right, now what do we, now let's create some goals. What do we need to do to be able to get there, right? And then once we define those goals, all right, what are some of the challenges, right? So let's say one of the goals is I need to lower my sodium intake, right? Well, a challenge could be as simple as, well, I'm afraid that food isn't going to taste good if I do that, right? Or it could be a health equity thing. It could be I can't afford healthy food, right?
Okay, well, so I'm going to interrupt because I'm a doctor and that's what we do. Sure. And I'm playing one. So already I'm thinking, how much is this going to cost me, tough guy?
Well, luckily it's only $10,000 per patient. Okay. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So,
click.
It's not exactly. And it's actually an interesting thing because a lot of services in the healthcare space, they're asking the doctors for money. People have this misconception that doctors are doing really well and they're swimming in cash. And it's actually not the case. Maybe some plastic surgeons in LA are. But beyond that, doctors are typically not businessmen. They're not taught about business medical school. And they have a rough time actually starting and building a practice to be successful. So to come to a doctor and say, I've got this really great program, all it's going to cost you is $10,000 is a really hard pitch to make at best. Okay. What's nice about what we do is we're saying, no, this is a program that we're going to do for you from A to Z. Okay. All you're going to get from the program from an involvement perspective is the actual value of the program, which is the better data on your patients. Because what we didn't get to is once we build that care plan, we're now following up with that patient every single month. That patient has a callback number directly to us and we are white labeled to the doctor. So that relationship that we're building is the doctor's relationship, right? And you're going to get the value. You're going to get messages if things that your patient needs. We're going to drive more traffic to your practice because we are going to be proactively reaching out to your patients. We're going to say, oh yeah, maybe you want an appointment. You weren't going to reach out. We can either schedule that for you ourselves, or we can coordinate with you depending on your custom workflows. We can do medication refill requests. And this entire service has a CPT code that is payable by Medicare. So this is a program that Medicare wants you to do and will pay you to do it.
So let me just clarify this. That's what I do. So basically, you're going to prevent excessive illnesses you're going to catch things at phase 1 instead of phase 4 because they're going to be monitored. You're going to catch it, and through this monitoring, when they do reach a level that needs my assistance, I'll be contacted. But if they don't need my assistance, am I able to charge them? You say I'm able to charge them monthly, even if I didn't do anything.
And by charge them, we mean Medicare. Yes, Medicare wants you to do this every single month. Okay. And the reason is because just because you don't have an issue this month doesn't mean you don't have an issue the next month, right? And the entire preventive care inherently is being proactive and trying to keep on top of proactively reaching out. So if I decide
Medicare, I can bill Medicare on a monthly basis without seeing patients.
Well, you are communicating with the patient. You are doing care coordination. You are still doing the entire service, right? And at the end of the day, you are trying to, it's also the care is proactive. So just because I can't necessarily help you with something, you don't necessarily need an appointment, doesn't mean I can't nudge you in the right direction on your goals. That's the purpose of the program. I'm trying to get you on top of that diet. I'm trying to get you to exercise more, right? That's something that I'm trying to get you to do. We're trying to have this conversation together, and you're hopefully on board because we've gone through what you actually want to have as a health outcome. Right. So by pushing you on these goals every single month, it's not reactive care. And that's the mind shift that has to happen a little bit. It's not reactive care. And therefore, if you don't need anything from me, then this program is useless. It's proactive care. Does that make sense?
That's awesome. So 2 things are happening. One, you're improving my patient care.
Yep.
And you're improving my business.
Absolutely. And let's talk about access for a second, because if I had to sum up the number one issue that our patients have with all of our doctors across the board, it's access. Okay. Unfortunately, doctors' offices, the staff there are understaffed, overwhelmed, overworked, and it's just an unfortunate fact of life, right? There's a lot of thought that goes into reducing burnout and these kind of environments, but it's a fact of life. So when a patient's calling and they're on the phone and that thing is ringing and they're put on hold for 40 minutes, for an hour, and they're just trying to refill their medication, you know what they do? They hang up. At worst case scenario, they don't end up refilling the medication. And now they don't have their medication. Now they're not taking their medication. Now they end up in the hospital, right? But at a best case scenario, they're really annoyed because you're their doctor and they cannot get in touch with you, right? And so you deploy a program like this, and we have care managers that have the exact patient caseload that allows them to have time and space and patience for every single patient that is on their caseload. And that patient can call back and get directly in touch with them. We even have text that they can text with them, right? And they can, and it's not a bot, it's not AI. They can text with their care coordinator, then hit that call button on their cell, and it goes right to the care coordinator's phone. It is completely seamless. So now talk about access, right? Your patient satisfaction rate is going to go through the roof. And again, if I had to pick one thing that patients are most annoyed about, it's that issue, and this solves for that.
Really? So So my question is, when did this get started, and why isn't everybody doing it? There must
Sure.
be some drawbacks.
Great question. So it was started in 2015. Chronic care management was started in 2015. The subsequent programs were started at different times, RPM in 2019, et cetera.
All right, and you'll explain that afterwards.
Yeah.
Just slightly slower.
Okay, sure.
Jeez,
My good friend Ben
Look at this
Shapiro and
guy.
I, we have a talking off
My
every now and then.
gosh, and you use the word nudge. Yeah, I mean, who nudges anymore?
All right, we'll slow it down a little bit. So the program was started in 2015. Subsequent programs we'll talk about will start at later dates. Now, it got a major boost a year ago. At the beginning of 2022, CMS raised the reimbursement for chronic care management by 50%, 50. So it went from $42 per patient per month to $62 per patient per month. Okay. Now, there's only one reason that Medicare is going to raise the reimbursement for something, and that is because they see it's working. And by working, it means it's saving them money, and therefore it's worth it for them to up the funding for the program because it's obviously saving them on the back end. Now, how could such a program save Medicare money, right? It's pretty simple. If you're doing preventive care, let's take a really simple example, right? We've got an elderly patient. We're talking to her. We find out she doesn't really have a lot of help around the house, and she doesn't have a bar in her shower, right? I like this example because it's really easy. We do some care coordination, and she ends up with a bar in her shower, right? Now, statistically, she did not fall and break her hip and need a hip replacement surgery. That would have cost her $150,000. So Medicare maybe spent the $60 on that phone call, and they saved themselves $150,000, right? So started in 2015, raised the reimbursement in 2022, okay, by 50%. So that's when it was started. Why aren't people doing it? Now, the adoption rate of this program is very, very low. It's very low. And the reason is it's quite complicated to actually implement. There's a lot of, so the requirements are a patient has to have 2 chronic conditions. It seems simple from the requirements, somewhat simple. The patient has to have 2 chronic conditions. You have to create that care plan. You have to have an active EHR, 20 minutes of documented, timed, and tracked care every single month. That's pretty much the basics, right? So turns out that's kind of complicated to do in-house. And what we found is that unless you're big enough to dedicate an entire team to do this specifically, it does not make sense to do in-house, okay? Because you have people, and we've been to these conferences, I go to these conferences where people are trying to pitch, well, you can have random people in your practice doing random acts of care coordination, documenting it, and then collectively that'll come to the 20 minutes. You're not going to do it well. You're not going to do it efficiently. And most importantly, you're not going to do it compliantly, just practically. Okay. I've been to practices and we're like, all right, why don't we do CCM? And they're like, oh, we're already doing it. And it's like, okay, well, how many patients do you have? Well, we've got 200 patients. All right. Well, how many patients did you do with CCM last month? 5. Okay. Why don't we do all 200? And the answer blew me away. The answer was that they're afraid that they're not really doing it compliantly because they're basically just checking off, well, we've probably done 20 minutes. So they want to keep that number really low so that they don't get on the radar. They don't raise the red flag by saying, hey, you know what? So, but to me, that's so ridiculous. Why don't we do all your 200 patients, do it fully compliantly, do it properly, right? And then everybody wins. You win, Medicare wins, the patient wins, everybody wins. So it's quite complex to actually get done in-house unless you, again, what we've seen is unless you have a dedicated team to really do this and really focus on it, and you have people that this is all they're doing day in, day out, the entire month, they're able to schedule their month properly. And there's a lot that goes into that. Unless
so am I going to, as a doctor, if I work with you, am I going to have to hire any more people?
No. So when we try to, my general mentality is that if the ball's in my court, I can kick it, right? So we try to assume as much of the responsibilities of the program as possible. So when we partner with somebody, we need pretty much 3 things to get started. We need a service agreement and a HIPAA BAA. That's really important for your PHI. You need to be comfortable with us dealing with that, right? Second thing is going to be access to the EHR. And the third thing is going to be, I'm going to ask you for a fairly general patient list, okay? We're going to take that access to the EHR. We're going to take the patient list. We're going to go through every single patient manually. We're going to make sure they're active. We're going to make sure they're eligible. We're going to make sure they're alive. We're going to make sure that they've been in the office in the last 12 months. Another requirement, by the way. We're going to make sure that they have 2 chronic conditions. We're going to make sure that they have the right insurances. We're going to make sure all of that. We're then going to, with a custom phone line that will match your caller ID, we're going to reach out to the patient. And we're not lying to the patient. We are actively working for you as the doctor when we are on that phone. That is what we're doing. We're adopting your workflow.
So you're an extension of my office.
We are an absolutely integrated extension to your office. So now you've got this situation where you've got a full team of at least one, if not a number of care coordinators, depending on the panel size, right? That is working for you. We are not only doing this program, but we start doing, it's up to the doctor, but we're doing appointment scheduling, we're doing medication refill requests, we're taking some administrative work off. The patients have a callback number directly to us, which is directly to you because we are in your system. So we are able to help your patients as much as your team. And not only are you not paying us directly or upfront, but you're bringing in additional revenue from the program.
So you're earning money. So then how do you get paid?
So we invoice the doctor, right? We take it's not a percentage, it's a flat fee per CPT code. There's no garbage, there's no hidden fees. I've seen with many companies, I've seen some creative ways of getting the doctor locked in. So you'll have term, which is a fairly common one. They'll lock you in for a year and then like a non-circumvent or something for like another year or something like that. I don't believe in that. There's no term to our contract. I tell my doctors, these are your patients, not mine. If you don't feel like we're providing a stellar service, they're your patients. You should have every option to take them and do as you please. Another creative one is patient minimums. So people say, all right, after 3 months, you're going to have to pay us a minimum of 100 patients, right? After like a ramp up period. So that's pretty creative as well. None of that. By me, it's just, here's the CPT code. Here's what your reimbursement is. Here's what I'm going to charge you. It's not, like I said, it's not a percentage. It usually comes to around 50-60%. We're doing all the work. We're assuming all the risk. If patients don't end up being billable, we're the ones that are paying for that overhead, not you. So it's a pretty.
What do you mean if they don't? You mean if they're billed incorrectly?
19 minutes, which doesn't happen because we're efficient, right? But let's say that patient hits 19 minutes, doesn't hit 20 minutes. That patient's not billable. We still spent the 19 minutes, right? And by the way,
do I as the doctor, do I have any liability if you bill incorrectly or if you?
Okay. So the one part of the process that you're doing currently, even though we're working on a workflow for this, but the one part of the process that you're doing currently is the billing. So we would provide you with a billing report that you would give your existing biller. It would have everything that you need to bill, right? So it would have patient information, diagnosis codes, CPT codes, date of service, place of service, all that. And then you'd be able to plug that in and bill that out.
Okay. Now you said, this is awesome. I mean, this is just so good for a doctor to run his practice like a business.
Yeah.
Or her practice like a business. I mean, it's just, you can make it. And the people that I imagine are staying with CCM for a second, which is content. And please use a few more abbreviations because you're not confusing people enough. I like that. CCP, ERP, IPL. Who the heck knows what's going on?
All right, let's break it down. Let's break it down real quick. CCM, chronic care management. RPM, remote patient or physiological monitoring. Okay. TCM, transitional care management. That's when a patient is discharged from either a hospital or a rehab facility, and we're trying to get them back on the horse and get them back healthy.
You said ERP too.
BHI is behavioral health integration, and I can
what's
make
the
one
electronic
up for ERP.
thing? What's the
EHR, electronic health records, otherwise known as an
Okay.
EMR, electronic medical records. Okay.
Good. All right.
Feel free to stop me.
Anybody with a brain would know that, but I apparently don't have one. Okay. All right. So with that CCM and the liability, you say to me, you're not providing any care or giving any advice. You're I guess managing
we're collecting information and we're coordinating care.
Okay. And then I get to do that as the doctor.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what entails with getting started? Are there any devices that need to be given to them or is this just basically consultation?
Sure. So for the chronic care management program, there's no devices necessary. We reach out to the patient. They opt to enroll, by the way. So this is fully up to the patient. The other important thing, don't be one of these online impossible to unsubscribe from subscription services. Don't do that. If your patient doesn't feel like they're getting value from the service, take them off the program. Okay. Save the patient the headache, save yourself the headache. But so the patient is fully in control of being a part of this program. Okay. So we reach out to the patient, they opt to enroll, we create that care plan, and then we're touching base with them monthly, right? And then all the components of that, but it's purely done. It's a conversation. It's purely done over the phone. The second program, called remote patient monitoring, is very similar, but
and that's the RPM.
RPM, remote patient monitoring. Okay. We're actually monitoring actual patient data. Okay. So what we like to do now, technically that can be any electronically transmitted data, right? Specific to the doctor having a medical interest in that patient specific data, right? So, so we send out the device, and we like to use cellular devices because there's no setup on the patient's part. So we actually ship them to our offices first. We connect them to the patient's profile, and then we ship it out to the patient. So when the patient gets, typically we're doing scales and blood pressure cuffs. So we do have glucose monitors, but it's a little less popular. The patient will get it. They'll open it up. The scale, they literally pop the batteries in and stand on it. It takes the reading, it transmits it, turns off. They don't even have to turn. They have to do nothing. Just stand on it. Okay.
That's terrifying.
Cuff, it's amazing.
So everybody's.
I use it.
So
every
here
day.
that. Right. So now everybody knows how much you weigh. I mean,
no, only your care coordinator who's signed to a HIPAA agreement that we can't put that on a billboard. So you're fine.
Okay. So it is.
Yes, fully HIPAA compliant. Only people in your care loop are seeing that information. The second, blood pressure cuff, same thing. They take the blood pressure cuff, they put it on, they hit start, it takes the reading, it turns off. It is that simple. There's no Bluetooth to connect. There's no Wi-Fi to connect to. There's nothing to do. It is already pre-configured to you, to your profile.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, so now I know this because I've been a human most of my life, and
smart.
As easy as things are to do, still people don't do them. So
yes.
How do you get them to, if they didn't take their blood pressure that day, am I as the doctor gonna have to pick up the phone and call them?
That would be nice if doctors would do that. And when so let's talk about that for a second. And it's actually a good point that you raised, because a lot of people love to rant and rave about RPM like it's the latest, hottest thing. It is a very good program. We do it. It's a good program. But it has to be done correctly, and it has to be done meaningfully for the patient. And it always comes back to the same thing. You need to keep the patient at the front and center of what you're doing. And if you lose sight of that and you're just looking for a checklist for insurance to say, oh yeah, I'm a pain, I don't know what doctor, and I'm going to measure some random data from the patient that I technically don't have any medical need to monitor. Check, I can bill. You're going to lose in the long run. Okay. So if you keep the patient at the center, you're going to make it meaningful for them. But what people love to forget is that for this to be billable, the patient has to take 16 days of readings, not 16 readings, 16 days of readings for RPM to be billable. So when you have a company, so beware, doctors, when you have a company that they're going to win either way, like a technology or a device manufacturer or a platform, and they're saying, all right, well, you have 1,000 Medicare patients, so pay us for 1,000 patients and you're going to do great. You're going to bill all this money. They win either way. Okay. So the way that I like to set up contracts is that I only win if you win. So it's in our best interest. It's in our absolute interest to make this valuable to the patient, right? So it moves the goalpost a little bit. So if I only get paid if you get paid, then we need to figure out how to get the patient to take the 16 days of readings. So to answer your question, how do we do that? Trade secrets right here. So there's a couple different things. First of all, if there is the ability to get the doctor on board with rolling it out, you're going to do much better. Okay. So if there's every doctor is different, every office is different, every workflow is different. But if there's a way to get the doctor in on referring it to the patient, on pitching it to the patient, obviously the doctor is always going to approve that you're doing this with your patients, of course. But for them to actually talk to the patient about it, it's going to make a big difference. Secondly,
can they are you saying like an email or
whatever? The point is that if it comes directly from the doctor, anything that it's not advice, anything that comes directly from a doctor is going to be more impactful to the patient than from a care coordinator. We do great work, but that's the fact of life. You're the doctor. You're cooler. Okay. Secondly, we're testing a lot of different devices. Right now, we are seeing more success with scales. Okay. And now that doesn't mean that you give scales to a patient that you don't need to be monitoring their weight. I'm talking about focusing on patients that need to be monitoring their weight. And the reason, makes a lot of sense. Blood pressure cuff, you have to be in the right, you have to be sitting upright. You have to roll your sleeve up all the way. I mean, that's difficult enough for me to do, let alone if I was 85 years old. You have to be in the right state of mind. You didn't just run around. You didn't just sleep it's more specific, right? And it's harder to actually execute on. So, choosing the correct device is going to be important with compliance. And then there's actually the way you talk to the patients and how you talk to the patients. And that's something that we've worked on for a really long time. And that's what we do really well at is actually engaging the patients. But
Joe Miller's giving you some love.
Appreciate you, Joe. Best guy, top guy. I want that in writing though. So, an interesting thing, there's a guy named Scott Adams. Have you heard of Scott Adams? He's the author of Dilbert, the comics.
He's the author of Dilbert?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I know Dilbert more than I know Scott Adams.
All right. So Scott Adams, big fan. He wrote a bunch of books, and his lens on life is persuasion. Okay. And I'm going to use this opportunity to call him out because his whole thing is persuasion. Okay. He figures out how to implement. He took when you hypnotize people, I don't know what the fancy term for that is, but he took one of those classes, and a lot of it uses persuasion. That's whatever. It's his whole lens on life. So anyway, if I believe that if somebody like him, if we would brainstorm a little bit, we could figure out a way to really get patients on board, specifically for RPM. So I've been reaching out to him. I sent a bunch of emails. He finally got back to me, and he said, "I don't collaborate." Which, you know what? Like we said at the beginning of the call, say yes, Scott Adams. Okay. Yeah. Don't say I don't collaborate. Okay. So anyway, it's something I'd like to continue to explore is utilizing persuasion in these programs.
I think they use neuro-linguistic programming. That's the NLP thing that they do. Yeah. You know.
Yeah. But getting your patients engaged in RPM is going to be key. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but it's the same thing as CCM where, if they do it for the 16 days or whatever they need to do, you can bill them.
Yeah.
Even if they're monitoring, even if they were in line with their weight and everything or their blood pressure all month.
Correct. Because again, it's proactive, right? You're never going to catch them being off if you're not looking. Right. So even if this month and we fortunately or unfortunately, we have this. Just last week, one of the care coordinators walked into my office and said one of the doctors told me on a meeting, care coordinator saw something off, coordinated with doctor and prevented hospitalization. This happens relatively often, but if you're not consistently checking every single day, every day and every month, when it's going right, then you're not going to catch when it's going wrong.
Okay. And so that's a perfect example. And so this is like the perfect thing. This is a sales show. This is the perfect thing to sell. Doesn't cost the doctor anything. They get extra income and they're able to do their job better.
Yep.
And so, it's a love story. And so the question is, what is the barrier that doctors are saying for the reason why they don't do it?
So it's implementation. That's what it is. It's difficult to implement. So there's a couple challenges. First of all, doctors.
I'm cutting you off. All right, but you're saying because I'm all excited. So now I'm a doctor again. If I would say, you know what, Mendel, I like your name. Do you make mandel bread, by the way? I haven't had good mandel bread in 30 years.
Well, you got to start going to Chabad. We talked about this.
Yeah. There's no reason not to go to Chabad.
There you go.
All right. So, gosh, what was I saying before I got into? Mendel. Yeah. So I like it. It sounds good. I'd like to get started. You're saying you're telling me it's hard to implement. Tell me what the implementation process is now working with you and Privia Health Group.
Okay, so if you're working with us, then it's not, we do the implementation. So that's not the difficult part. We do it from A to Z. You'll have it up and running within 2 weeks. Your patients will have devices. Okay.
And how much will I be earning per patient? I'm just the business guy. Let's say I'm the office manager.
On remote
Yeah.
patient monitoring, it's about $100 between two different codes, 99454 and 99457. Will give you about $100. Came down, it was 120. Came down in 2022 by $20. On CCM, it's about $62 per patient per month.
So according to my calculations, if I can make a 62 plus 162, and then out of that 162, how much do I owe you?
So again, it's a flat fee per CPT code. It comes out to about 50 to 60%, depending on the program. RPM, we take a little bit more. There's more costs
All
involved.
right, so times 0.5. So 162. So what is that? 76?
Sure.
Okay. So I get you set up. I give you a list of all of my patients.
Yep.
I write an email and do whatever to communicate. I say, hey, you expect a call from Mendel Erlewine, right? It looks
It's not gonna be
harder
for me. Trust me. I'm not.
I know.
I'm a lot less talented
Your
than
name
our care
sounds. Your name looks harder to pronounce than it is. Okay,
No.
Erlewine. So
I've done
you're gonna get a call from Previa, and accept
Previa.
that, and
Yeah.
and that's the extent. Other than billing, that's the extent of my work.
So I'm going to take something out and I'm going to add another thing in. You don't necessarily have to email your patients. I would love if you did that, but you don't have to do that. What you do have to do is actually execute on the value of the program, which is when your patient needs something and we are talking to them and we find that out.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the real program. The real program is the actual value, you know?
you're questioning my doctoring ability. I mean,
Not
here
at
we
all.
are. I thought we're friends, and now I'm some sort of
helping
quack
I'm
out
helping
there.
you. I'm giving you more information so you can be a better you.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is amazing. So when did you get started in this business?
Program started in 2015. This company was started in 2015. I actively took it over in 2019, and since then moved it out to Pennsylvania. We've grown tremendously, thank God. Really focused on laying a lot of the groundwork to be able to scale this up, to do it properly, bring everything in house, and just do it really, really well. And
Is there anybody else? How's the competition in this business?
There's a good amount of competition. Unfortunately, there are an equal number of bad actors as there are good actors in the space. Some people, like I alluded to earlier, like to just look at this as, all right, how can I stick my hand in this pot and figure out how to check off and bill? People are doing, things that are illegal. I've taken on many clients that have come from groups that, for example, the care team was overseas. That's illegal. Medicare says if they're paying for a program and it's not emergency care, that team must be in the US. So that's one example. Another example would be just not talking to the patients, just not actually doing the program, and then billing. Okay. Like that's a good example. So we've seen a lot of that. There's good competition, but I talked to a lot of companies in my space, and it seems to me that we're doing it at a very efficient and very sustainable level. And the other thing that I love,
and have you gotten funding, or is this all bootstrapped and started from scratch?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Something I personally love about my job is I actually have to hunt my own and make my own bread. We have not taken on any funding, and a lot of these companies have taken on a tremendous amount of funding, upwards of $100 million. Some of these companies, and a lot of them end up crashing and burning. And it's a very interesting dynamic. I would imagine this isn't exclusive to my space, but I think that when you're dealing with investor funding to the tune of millions or tens of millions of dollars, you make decisions in a different way. They're not necessarily sustainable, right? I mean, talking to one company where they would be doing offsites in, out of state, flying the entire company out, doing these crazy things. Then 2 months later, they're telling their salespeople that they can't travel because they don't have any money.
Yeah.
So,
well, no, I think it's excellent because you're going to be advising this is a business decision for the practice. You're advising the practice to act more like a business and a small business, which is what you are. So you could really speak the same language to these practice officials there, which is
there's no magical money. It just when you have investor funds, it takes on a different form. It has advantages but it also has disadvantages.
Oh, that's cool. Well, and you sound incredibly smart. You look like you're 15. So what's going on? You're married, children?
Son, let me move this thing over here. I am. Nope, that's worse. Other way.
Look at that.
All right. right, we're live. It happens. I am married, 2 children, got a 3-year-old and a several-month-year-old. I find it hard to keep track until they turn at least 1. But 2 little guys, and thank God, have a lot of fun.
Both boys? Oh,
Both
you're one of those, thank God guys. Are you one of those Baruch Hashem guys? After
No,
every
I'm not
word
Sephardi.
Baruch Hashem.
No.
Okay.
I have a Sephardic sister-in-law. They're and she adopted, she married my brother-in-law who's very, very Ashkenaz and very white, but he's totally gone over to that side. Absolutely. I mean, he's
I have
Baruch
no
Hasheming everything.
Oh yeah. So that's the Ashkenazi that does that? Or the Sephardic that does that?
That's the Sephardi. I mean, Baruch Hashem, we all say that just means thank God,
Yeah.
but the abundance of blessings for everything, and you can't say goodbye to them because it's 30 minutes of salutations and blessings. And,
It's funny. Well, that's excellent. Well, listen, I see how did you get such passion for this? Were you always in healthcare, or were you a car mechanic and you just fell into this?
So I did start in healthcare, and I started off in marketing. Okay. And I was trying to sell, so I was working for a guy that had kind of a conglomerate of healthcare companies. And he wanted me to open a marketing company that would support the marketing needs of his various companies.
Got it.
But the idea was that we would also bring on other clients. So I found myself trying to sell these services to other healthcare clients. And I really did not enjoy it for 2 reasons. And, I didn't necessarily know this then, but now that I'm in this, and which is why I'm very passionate about it, and which I'll get to. So, a lot of people, like you've mentioned earlier, a lot of people think that doctors are just swimming cash, are doing really well, and they're not. They're not. So to come to them and say, all right, I've got this incredible marketing program. It's going to get you more patients, going to this and the other, blah, blah, blah. All it's going to cost you is whatever amount of money you need up front.
Right.
It's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. The other thing is knowing what you're selling. Okay. And I think a lot of people specifically in, I have a bit of a, I don't take consultants too seriously. Okay. Let's put it that way. All right. Not to bash any consultants, but I think that people that are in these kind of vague spaces like marketing and branding and this and the other, there are many people that know exactly what they're doing, not bashing anybody, but there are a lot of people that don't really know what they're doing, and they just see a hype and they like to go out there and try to sell it. And if you don't really know what you're selling, you're not going to feel good about yourself, first of all. So if you actually, let's take marketing, right? If you actually know how to pick a demographic and create an avatar and create a brand and go in there and target and execute and actually get leads and close the leads and actually do something from A to Z, great, fabulous. But if you're just somebody that's just like, oh, marketing, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to subcontract it to somebody else and whatever, I don't think you're going to feel good about myself. And you're going to feel good about yourself. And I was kind of in that space. So I didn't fully understand what I was selling. I was just trying to do, to act, to bring in more leads for that healthcare company. So those 2 things combined, I didn't really like it so much. So contrast that to this, right? Where first of all, we do every aspect of the business. There's no subcontracting, right? So I know exactly what we do. I know how well we do it, and I know why it works. And I know that it works, right? For the patients primarily, right? I hear the stories from the care coordinators. I listen to how they talk on the phone. I for God's sake, there was a handwritten note that came to our office last month for one of the care coordinators, okay, from an old gentleman up in Washington State, okay, and it came with a little $5 bill, and it said, "Dear Angel," okay, it said, "Thank you so much for your care and coordination and calling me about my health. I really appreciate it. Please see the enclosed to buy yourself something nice, and keep working hard and keep being great," right? I mean, we've had care packages sent to the practice, the doctor's office, because they assume that typically they just assume we're in the doctor's office. We've had, gingerbread cookies, and the best was homemade moonshine. We've had that once. Homemade moonshine sent to an office. So, I mean, to see this work is very meaningful. That's first of all, right? So there's, again, contrasting those 2 things. I know what we do. I know exactly what we do. That's really, and it's meaningful work. Yeah. And the second thing is, like you said earlier, I don't have to ask you for money that you don't have. I'm going to make you money. I don't have to come in and say, all right, and all this is going to cost you is X amount of dollars. That was a really tough thing for me to execute on. I'm not a master salesperson. Obviously, people that are, they know how to say it in the right way. I'm sure you've got some absolutely fantastic advice for people that need to be closing in that space. But for me, if I could not close in that space and I could say, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to get this set up, and there's no upfront costs, and there's no implementation fees, and there's no, what you see is what you get. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I got, and Charlie Brown over here, that's his actual name, by the way.
Okay.
I know this guy. His name is Charlie
Charlie?
Brown. Yeah. And he lives in a town called Woodstock.
Okay. That's
so
a
the
music
guys-
festival, right?
Yeah. No, it's, you don't understand. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Everybody else understood that. Anyhow, I had done some research regarding what's going on in the medical industry, and you're going to get a sunburn on your right ear.
I know.
But
I'm trying to move this around. Yeah. Go
But
ahead.
apparently, there are about a doctor a day is committing suicide.
Wow.
I mean, you were talking about, you think they're so wealthy and stuff, and no one has any problems with anything. Man, the depression that goes on is just astounding. It's more than policemen, firemen. Dentists it's crazy how much is going on. So what you're doing is transforming one's practice into a business and into a lifestyle that is commensurate to the amount of work that it took for them to get into that position. So I really do think you're doing God's work. It's terrific. So Charlie asked a question. This is very interesting. How do you hire folks to work in this? I think he meant kind of business.
How do you hire folks
In the
to work
contact
in this
business?
kind?
Yeah, contacting these, getting. I guess the people who are communicating with the patients.
Gotcha. So if you're a practice, you're going to want to look at anyone between an RN and a CNA, okay, which is a certified nursing assistant. An RN is a high level nurse. Past an RN, it typically does not make sense economically to pay for this program. Now different. It's very interesting. I find that there's a big geographical difference when it comes to the lower end. If you want to hire a certified medical assistant or a certified nursing assistant, in some states, in some areas, you'll find that the nursing assistants actually know more about the demographic. They've worked in nursing homes. They've worked with the patients, and in other areas, it seems to be the medical assistants seem to be no. So you'll have to feel out your area for what type of staff you're going to hire. That's if you're a practice, that's who you're going to look at to actually implement the program. And then of course it's a hierarchy where you've got the doctor on top, and then, it also varies between how large your program is. Do you have 100 patients? Do you have 1,000 patients? Do you have 5,000 patients? It'll vary. And then if you're not up to hiring people, then that's when you look for a service partner like myself.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming. This is great. You gave me a whole lot of information, and I learned some new acronyms, which is good. Actually, they're not just acronyms; they're just initials. An acronym would be something that spells something, like scuba or something like that. Who knows? Yeah, doesn't scuba mean something? Charlie Brown will tell me. In any event, this is great. So how do people get a hold of you? Let's say I'm a doctor and I'm looking, is it just like a quick sign up, or do I get a demo? How does it work?
Sure. Very active on LinkedIn. You can email me, Mendel@previva.com, PREVIVA.com.
If Chris Stone was here, he'd be able to put something on board there.
Right, there we go. Email me, LinkedIn. I try to remain extremely communicative. I love people and I love talking to people. And if I'm able to help you in any capacity, and that might be saying, this doesn't make sense for you, then I would love to do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Well, I appreciate you coming, and for all those people watching, if you have a doctor, you need to tell them about this. Like, this is something everybody needs to know. It's crazy to have a system that's willing to pay, that's willing to help for the right reason. They're willing to pay money to prevent more disease and prevent the cost to the system. And you're not utilizing it is a sin against humanity. So go ahead and let's get this in every doctor's office out there on the planet. Mendel,
Yes.
like I say, I think you're doing God's work. I appreciate you. I wish nothing but good things happen to you for the rest of your life. Eat well,
Amen.
Live long and prosper, and stick around after this. I want to talk to you, and we'll see you all very soon. Go get them today. Take care.